So first, I just want to say thank you so much to APSIA and to USC and to Becca Christensen and Paul. I just want to say thank you so much for asking me to speak here tonight. I'm definitely a little bit nervous, and I was asked to speak first, so that's always fun, and I'll do my best. So the first thing we were asked to do is to identify two events in our life that really helped shape and define us both professionally and personally. And the first event is actually a little bit of a cheat. I moved around a lot as a child, so I went to 12 different schools in 12 years. So I traveled, I moved around, I was always the new kid, and so even though that is a lot of events kind of combined into one, that's my first event. And then the second event is becoming a mother, and that is by far the biggest event in my life. Those two events really helped shape certain qualities in me. Moving around a lot really helped me become independent and really taught me to be okay with myself. So always being the new kid, I just had to learn to be able to walk into any group, into any setting, and be 100% okay with who I was and what I stood for. The other thing it taught me is adaptability. I learned how to adapt to different environments, different groups of people, different settings, and I learned how to be comfortable in those different environments while still being myself. And another quality it taught me is how to be okay with diversity. I am more than comfortable in any setting. I can talk to any group of people from all different walks of life, and I think that that has served me well both professionally and personally. I know undoubtedly that served me well in my life. Diversity also taught me how to be able to talk to anyone and find commonalities, that we are far more alike than we are unalike. For a long time, I only saw the shortcomings with moving, and as a kid, you hate having to be the new kid in the class, you hate having to walk into a new school and learn the lay of the land, and so I think I resented it for a large part of my growing up. And then, as I got older, I realized that having always been the new kid, really, I was completely confident and comfortable in any setting, and I would see people who grew up in the same neighborhood and went to the same school and had all of the same friends, and there's beauty in that. I just was also able to see how being okay with diversity and being independent and meeting all of these different people really helped me in a way that giving me an opportunity that other people don't normally have. And it's basically a trial by fire. So when you walk into a new school and you're the new kid and everyone's looking at you and I have a funny name and no one can pronounce it, it's really trial by fire. So you walk in and you're just like, you kind of bear down and okay, this is me, this is who I am, and I know you guys will like me if you just give me an opportunity, if you give yourselves an opportunity to get to know me. So it really gave me this ability to just like myself, truly, and know that I would find other people, like-minded souls who would like me and I would like them, no matter how different they were from the last group. It also helped me figure out who I was, or who I am rather, and what I stand for. When you're meeting all of these different types of people from different backgrounds and different belief systems, it can be hard for a child to remain steadfast in their beliefs. And it taught me to be okay with that I could be very different, and I could have a different background, and my name could be different and funny, and my parents could have an accent, and that no matter what happened, I'm still okay with who I am and what I believe in. It also taught me an incredibly important skill, and that is resilience. Moving away is hard. Leaving your friends, leaving favorite schools and teachers, it's always sad. And even still, when you go to the new school and you make new friends and you find the new favorite teacher, it just teaches you to be resilient, to be able to bounce back and see the glass is half full, see the positive side of moving and moving to a new place and having to pack up all of your things, which is never a fun part of moving. And it also forced me out of my shell. Naturally, I am very much an introvert. I really am quite quiet, although no one actually believes that who knows me. But I'm a very quiet, introverted person. I have a lot of opinions, that's for sure, but I like to spend a lot of time alone, and I'm quite shy. And unfortunately, when you're always the new kid, you can't afford to be shy. If you're shy, you are invisible. And I valued friendship more than I valued my shyness. And so I always found a way to push through those initial feelings of discomfort and not wanting to talk to people and feeling a little weird, to just going, all right, well, if I want to make some friends, I'm going to have to push myself through. And it did. It taught me how to do that. And it's a skill that even to this day I can walk into a group of people and put my hand out and say, hello, I'm Jana, what's your name? Nice to meet you. And it's an incredible skill. And then personally and professionally, learning to be okay with being perceived as different, I would have to say that's one of the greatest gifts. I don't have any problem feeling like the odd man out. I don't have any problem being the only one speaking up if that's what's needed at the time. And I think that's one of, I think my personal frustrations with a lack of personal leadership in certain situations is that there's these people with these incredible ideas and they really have so much going on, but they just don't want to say anything that rocks the boat. And they don't want to say anything that's going to attract too much attention or make them seem or appear different. And I think, just in general, that we need to be able to get over that and move past that, because each of us has such an important message, and if we're too afraid to speak out, the world is missing out. And so I think it's a gift. I think it can also be a burden for those around me because I'm kind of a loudmouth now, but at the same time, I know that when I'm speaking truly from my heart. And so that's absolutely a gift, and it's a gift that served me well in all areas of my life. As far as the second event in my life, which is being a parent, it is by far the most challenging and most rewarding experience I've ever had in my life. My daughter is the motivating force. She is the one thing in my life that is my compass. She's my true north, and if I make my decisions based on what is best for her, everything else miraculously falls into place. And so while being a parent is difficult, I truly do feel fortunate in that I have my guiding star. I don't have to wonder what my purpose is because I wake up and I see her every day. And that has helped guide me in every personal and professional decision in my life. Because at the end of the day, if it's a job or a responsibility is something that's going to take me away from home, it's not going to happen because my responsibility is to her. And so trying to find this balance of still being a professional and being someone who wants to advance and do well in life, and then still also have my peers and have my superiors know that my child is number one for me. It makes it really easy to make a lot of decisions because they know, like, oh, you need me to go where? When? Let me make sure that doesn't conflict with my daughter's field trip schedule. And on a deeper level, it just constantly it's a constant reminder to evaluate my life. Being a parent means that you're always on your toes, and that if there's anything going on in your life, it's showing up in your child's life, and so you have to constantly look at yourself to see how you're doing. Are you being authentic? Are you well? Are you living in balance? Those are some of the things that I know. If I start to get short-tempered or am I tired, we have this acronym that says HALT, and it's something that I do at work and at home, and it's hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And if you're any one of those things, you're not at your best. And so those, when you sense any of those, you need to halt and take care of yourself. And being a parent really forces you to take very good care of yourself so that you can then give more back later. And that's been probably one of the biggest lessons, is that I have to take good care of myself so that I can be a good mother and a good everything. Being a parent has also taught me awareness and a sense of balance. So for me, right now I'm pursuing my master's, so I'm pursuing it later in life. And that's one of those decisions that I've had to make in an attempt to find balance. So I've had to pass on promotions. I had to go back to school later in life when everyone was telling me to hurry up and make sure I was in school and make sure I was pursuing my degree. And to feel like I knew I was disappointing people who had these great aspirations for me, but internally knowing that I was doing the right thing because it just wasn't the right time, and I really did want to enjoy raising a toddler and an infant, and I didn't want to be taken away from that at the time. And so now I'm going to school, and I work full-time, and I go to school full-time, and I help my daughter with her homework, and it's certainly not easy, but it's worth it, and it's the only way that I could find balance. And so yes, I'm doing it later, but I feel like it was the wisest decision I could make. I've had to pass on promotions, which is never easy, but if it's something that, even though it might bring me more money, is going to take the balance out of my life and not allow me to give my home life the priority it deserves, then that's something that I've had to do. And again, it's one of those things where the external world is looking at you saying, well, but your title could be this and your salary could be this, and you have to say that that's not in line with my values. And we live in a world where that's just not easily accepted, unfortunately. And it's not always taken at face value. And I'm ambitious, and I want to do well, and I am a hard worker, and I am passionate about my work. So passing on some of those promotions and some of those raises means that I'm constantly fighting my ego, because my ego's like, go for it, full steam ahead. And then the other part of me chimes in and goes, is this really what's best for you? And I found that there's just a couple of questions that I have to be able to answer in my life to know that I'm doing the right thing. And so I have to ask myself, am I well? Is my child happy? Am I working hard? Am I showing up? And am I giving 100% of myself to my work and to my school and to my child? Because that's the important part, is being able to give all of yourself when you're in that environment and not being distracted, not being with your child but thinking about homework, or being at work and thinking about, being at home with your child. And am I showing my child, and this is the most important question, am I showing my child the best possible example of how to be an upright, upstanding human being? And I'm not perfect, and as much as I like to believe that I am, I'm not perfect. And so really trying to be the best that I can be, and to show her how it looks, what it looks like when someone is trying to be an authentic version of themselves. So it definitely forces me to live with honesty and integrity and take a very long, hard look at my life quite regularly. And so obviously I'm very opinionated, and I have these very specific views on how I'm living my life, and so I'm sure that I rub some people the wrong way, although it's never intended. But overall I feel like the people that I work with and the people who I work for value and respect me, and they know that because of the way that I live my life, that when they're talking with me and when they're in a meeting with me, they know that they can take what I say at face value. And so while we may disagree, they know that they can count on me for my honesty. So we were also asked to talk a little bit about how we came to work for the state of California, and for me it was a fluke. My uncle used to always tell me, you should work for the state, and I just never saw that happening. And I worked in the private sector as a paralegal for a long time, and I just figured I would do something in that. I had no idea I'd end up with the state. And sure enough, I did. My daughter was entering kindergarten, and I was not working so that I could stay at home with her while she was off for the summer. And then when she started school, I thought, well, I need a job. So my friend recommended that I go to a temp agency, or a staffing agency, which I hadn't done before. And I went, and they placed me with a state agency. They placed me with the Office of Administrative Hearings. And after working there for 2 weeks, they picked me up permanently. They had me take a test, or the beginning of the long drawn-out state process, and I was picked up permanently. And I worked there as the chief calendar clerk for the special education division. So we heard all of these special education hearings throughout the state of California. And that was my first experience with the state, and I was with them for a little over 4 years, and it was to this day one of the greatest work experiences I've had in my life. It was incredibly challenging, very fast-paced, and they were coming in at kind of a crazy time of transition, and I fell in love. And then eventually I decided that I wasn't going to be able to promote if I stayed there, and that was what I found. So I stayed for as long as I could, and I worked under Presiding Judge Carl Ingeman, who was one of the best individuals I've ever worked for. And when he retired, I left shortly thereafter, and I went to the Department of Justice. And I was there as a legal secretary for about 3 years. And while I was there, I was pursuing my undergraduate simultaneously. And so I worked there. And then shortly after, I was there for about 3 years. And then I left for the private sector. I decided I had had enough of this state business and I wanted a break, and I really wanted to advance and soar, and I couldn't do that in the public sector, so I thought. And so I left and I worked for a private university, and I did that for about a year, and I was traveling a lot and my schedule was a little crazy, and so I decided I wanted to return to the state, as so many of us do, and I applied to, I don't know, a billion or so different positions, and I interviewed with the Office of the Inspector General, and I interviewed with the Inspector General at the time and the Chief Deputy, and I knew that this was the place for me. And so during the interview, the Inspector General said to me, okay, it's clear you're overqualified, so I don't want to hire you and then have to go looking for a new assistant within 3 months. So, well, are you going to leave me? Are you going to leave me in 3 months? And I said, no, I promise I won't leave you. I'll give you a year. But I'm sure you'll promote me. And so it became kind of this personal challenge between he and I. So I was hired as his executive assistant, and that was 2.5 years ago, and this is the first time that I'm not on probation, because I did promote twice. I promoted to a staff services analyst, and then shortly thereafter to an associate governmental program analyst. And that's probably one of the greatest lessons I learned through working in the state, was that if you want to advance, you have to be in control of it. You have to be the one who pushes for it, and you have to be the one to kind of lead the effort, because when you work for someone and you're a hard worker and you do your job well, they do not want to lose you. And so they may love you and love having you, but they're not always going to support your advancement, because they know they're not going to be able to find a replacement who will do the job the way that you do it. And so fortunately I didn't have that experience at the Office of the Inspector General, and they were more than happy to promote me. But I found that I had to be a little bit pushy. I had to keep coming back. And it really taught me how to value my own self-worth and know what I was capable of and know what I could do if I was given the opportunity. I learned that I could be well valued and work for really great people, and they're well-intentioned people, but that it was my job. It wasn't their job to promote me. It was my job to get promoted. And so it was kind of a shift in responsibility. Instead of feeling like, well, if I just work hard, eventually I'll advance, to know that I needed to make sure I did that. I love being challenged, and I love working hard, and the people I work for know that, and they know I'll consistently go above and beyond. And I think that's one of the skills that I've taken with me, is that when you create that kind of reputation for yourself, and when you work with people and they see that side of you, they really want you to succeed. And so if you're pushy enough, and I know Bob will tell you I'm a little bit of a loudmouth about the promotions and constantly hounding him, but it actually does work in my favor now. The Office of the Inspector General really continues to teach me valuable lessons about leadership. I'd have to say working for the Inspector General has been one of the most eye-opening experiences, because I learned that I could work in a state government and not feel like I was stuck in bureaucracy. I learned that I could work for someone who took a true interest in his employees. So the Inspector General, at the beginning of every year in January, he schedules one-on-one meetings with every employee in the agency, and we have a small enough agency that he's able to do so, but I think it just says something about him as a leader that he's willing to. Because, as we all know, able and willing are two very different things, and the Inspector General always wants to talk to his employees and give them an opportunity to talk to him, and he wants to hear what they have to say. Another thing he does is he takes all of his employees out for lunch once a year. And again, it's these little tiny things and these little tiny ways that your manager, and at this level, your director, the director of your agency, the head of your agency, is really taking an interest in everyone. And I've just found that people, for the most part, enjoy working for him and really are inspired to work harder because they know that he values them and is committed to the agency. We were also asked to talk a little bit about how our coworkers see us and how our supervisors see us. And I think with my coworkers, it's a little tricky. I would say for the most part, they think I'm maybe a little smart. I'm pretty smart. They think I'm pretty funny. They know that I like to have a good time at work. That's one of my favorite things to do, is that, especially given the nature of the work that we do at our agency, is to try to keep it light and try to keep it fun and not get too serious. So, if it's something like suggesting that we have a Halloween costume contest or something a little light, but it just to bring some lightness into the office, I view that as my role. But I'm also an incredibly hard worker, and I believe that all hands should be on deck when needed, and I have no problem rolling up my sleeves to do whatever needs to be done. And I think my supervisors see me as someone that they can rely on. I think they know that if they come to me with something and they need it by yesterday, I'll get it to them. They know that I'm an incredibly hard worker and that my family comes first. So as much as I'm committed and connected to the work that I do in the agency, they also know exactly how important my daughter is. And it's pretty funny, actually. If she comes into the office, everyone will stop and say to her, "Oh my gosh, I have heard so much about you," and it is the first thing that everyone says to her. And she always smiles, and then we walk away and she's just kind of like, the feeling that, yes, while I'm at work, my work is important, but my daughter, again, is still my guiding star. Thank you.